Overwhelmed by planning your garden? Let me tell you how I plan my garden. First, I have to figure out what I need to plant. This year, I'm looking at the plants that we planted last year that we ate a lot of and that did really well. So for us, those are cucumbers and dill for pickles, basil for pesto, green beans, tomatillo for salsa verde, and tons of zucchini. I'm also trying to expand my garden a little this year. So what I'm looking at is, what are our health needs? What are the health conditions that that I have, that my husband has, that our extended family has? And what herbs have properties that help with those conditions? So that involves me adding some herbs for skincare, because people in my family have eczema and psoriasis, and a lot of plants that help with digestion, because I have a lot of digestive problems, and so do some other people in my family. I'm also adding a few unusual veggies, just because you get tired of growing the same thing and eating the same thing, and I'm all about variety. So I found a new book that I'll show you. This book is called Grow Something Different to Eat, and it has a lot of unusual veggies and fruits that you can try. So this year I'm thinking about planting amaranth and chickpeas, both of which I learned about in this book. I'm also thinking about cucamelon, but I'm not sure. This year I'm being a little more careful with how I plan for insects. Last year, we really struggled with 4 main insects: squash borers, squash bugs, cabbage worms, and these red ants on my tomatillos. I don't know what they're called yet. I haven't researched that yet, clearly. So what I'm doing to work on these is I'm looking at plant partners. So those are plants that can draw insects away from these plants, or plants called trap crops that these insects like better. So if you plant a trap crop beside your Brussels sprouts, the cabbage worms will go to the trap crop and leave your Brussels sprouts alone. Perfect. I'm also learning more about these pests and how I can avoid them, and how I can identify and treat them more quickly, because my squash bugs last year got absolutely out of hand. And I think if I had recognized them earlier and known how to treat them earlier, I would have had a lot better squash crop. I'm also learning about the water needs of different vegetables in my garden. And this year I'm setting up my garden in a way that makes my life easier. So the plants that I see that don't require much water, I'm putting at the back of the garden, farthest away from my hose hookup. And the plants that need the most water, I'm trying to put closer to the hose hookup. That way, I don't spend as much time trying to reach the very back of the garden with the hose. And I'm also looking at some irrigation systems to see if any of those are workable for my garden. I don't know if I'll start this year or if I'll start next year, but I'm looking at it. I'm looking at the nutrition needs of my plants, specifically around nitrogen. Nitrogen is something that a lot of the plants in the garden require. Some require more, like Brussels sprouts stand out in my mind as a plant that needs a lot of nitrogen. And I'm also learning about some plants that can take nitrogen out of the air and put it in the ground for the other plants to use. This includes plants like peas and beans. And I'm trying to find plant partners that can go together. A plant that needs a lot of nitrogen that can go with a plant that gives a lot of nitrogen. So for example, this year, once my Brussels sprouts really start growing, I'm going to plant peas around them and train the peas to climb up the Brussels sprouts. That way we're saving space and making natural trellises. But also the peas are going to put nitrogen into the ground that the Brussels sprouts need, so that everyone is getting, so both of those plants are helping each other. The planting schedule. So the good news about this is once you have this system set up, it really won't require a lot of maintenance the next years. But it does take some time. So what I've been doing is I've been researching all of the different plants that I want to plant. I'm looking at when do they need to go outdoors? That's date one. When do they need to be planted indoors, or do they? That's part two. And then I'm looking at if they need to be cold stratified. And cold stratification is when a plant needs to feel like the seeds have had a winter before they'll grow. So I'll have a video that I make all about cold stratification, but basically I'm looking to see which plants need that. A lot of your perennials do. And I'm looking to see how long their stratification period is, and then when do they need to go in my fridge, because you cold stratify most easily in your refrigerator, or you can plant your seeds in the fall, but yeah, we're at spring, so it's a little late for that. So how do I figure that out? I look at when the last frost is in my area, and generally here it's May 1st. So a lot of your plants will say sow indoors 6 to 8 weeks before the date of your last frost. So I subtract approximately 8 weeks and just put March 1st for those plants as the date that they need to be started indoors. And then if they say that they need 2 weeks of cold stratification, then I know that in the middle of February, I need to start putting those seeds into the cold stratification system. This is a tedious process. It's very annoying. But again, once you know these dates, you have them for every year going forward, and you don't have to redo this step unless you're adding a new variety or a new type of plant or herb. And the last thing I'm doing is planning where I'm going to put things in my garden. Now, last year I had this fancy chart and it looked beautiful and so organized and so neat, but the realities of life made it so I couldn't follow that. So this year I'm using a system of index cards, and each one has a few features that are the same. I have the name of the plant, duh. I have its nitrogen behavior. So this one uses a lot of nitrogen, and I'm going to remember to find an index card of a plant that has 2+ signs because it gives a lot of nitrogen to plant together. I have its water needs. I have a little system of 3 drops. So 1 is infrequent watering, 2 is moderate, 3 is heavy. I have a list of the plant partners, and usually over here I'll have the height, but I know that Brussels sprouts are super tall, so I don't really need to write that on the chart because I know. So my plan is, as I start my garden and I start to plant the plants that go in first, I'm going to lay down the index cards on my kitchen table in the placement that I'm going to put them, so that I can look at what's already planted and say, okay, now I have cilantro ready to plant in the garden. Where should I put it? And I'll see, oh, hey, Brussels are a great fit because they don't require a lot of water. Cilantro is really an easy to grow plant. I haven't killed it in years that I haven't remembered to water it, which is always a good sign. And so as this year goes, I'll show you my system and show you how it works. So If you like this video, don't forget to like this video, subscribe to my channel, and stay tuned for some videos that are coming out. Specifically, I have videos planned about the top 5 mistakes that I made in my garden last year, what is cold stratification, and how to do it, and information about plant partners, which is absolutely the best thing that I've ever learned to help me in a garden. So stay tuned for more videos coming to you soon.